Alrighty, hello everybody. It's 3:30, so we will go ahead and get started here. Hopefully at this point you can see my screen and hear me, and now you should be able to see me as well. Based on all of our earlier sound checks, everything seems to be up and running okay. So that's great. And yeah, like I said, thank you for being here and welcome to Edulastic for Social Studies. My name is Jan Moody and I will be your host today. I am joined by really awesome panelists and presenters and also a few of my Edulastic teammates as well. So today presenting, we have Greg Ebert, who's a high school US history and economics teacher. And we also have Jenny Takoyan, and she is on our content and customer success team here at Edulastic. Both of them have really awesome presentations and we are excited to hear. Also on the line with me today is my colleague, Ileana Betancourt, and Ileana will be helping to answer questions and monitor the chat and making sure that you guys leave here today with all of your questions answered and with all of the Edulastic information that you were hoping to get out of this. So like I said, thanks for being here and we are looking forward to the next hour. Alrighty, so before I pass it off to Greg and to Jenny, there are just a few housekeeping things to go over. The first is let's all take a moment to test out the chat. We want this to be a collaborative experience and for you all to use the chat to get to know one another and share any insight that you may have. So at this time, if everybody could please type into the chat, maybe where they're tuning in from and what the weather is like there. So I'll start. I'm in the Bay Area. Oh, and Ileana just added a great point to the chat as well. She said, if everybody could please make sure that your chat is set to both panelists and attendees, that would be awesome. That makes it so that everybody who's here is able to see all the things that you have to say. So yeah, I'm in the Bay Area. Looks like we have a New Mexico, a New York, and it's cold in New York. I bet it, Dorothy. Phoenix, Arizona, I bet it's a lot warmer there. LA, nice. Pittsburgh, oh, freezing. Oh, I hope you warm up. Maybe you can have some hot chocolate or something. Brooklyn, New York, seen a lot of cold. I guess that makes sense as it is January. Long Beach, California, somewhat warm. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. Alrighty, so my next point is the poll that I launched a little bit ago. If everybody could take this, that would be great. Looks like 97% of you already have. So really appreciate that. That helps us understand who's here so that we can understand what questions are coming our way and we can cater the presentation a bit to your experience levels. And then finally, if you have any official questions during today's webinar, please put them into the Q&A bubble that you see at the bottom of your screen. This helps myself and Ileana and Jenny and Greg keep track of all of those questions so that we either can type a response back to you or get to them during our designated Q&A time at the end. Alrighty, so I did want to point out, it looks like based on the poll, 56% of you are brand new to Edulastic, which is awesome. Welcome and thanks for being here today. But I did want to say that today's webinar won't necessarily focus on all of those brand new, just getting started with Edulastic features. If you are looking for that sort of training, we have that available on our YouTube channel. So if you're brand new, I definitely would recommend checking out an Edulastic 101 training. And Ileana, hopefully you can share the link to that in the chat. Alrighty, so before I pass it off to Greg and Jenny, I'm just going to give a really short overview of Edulastic in the social studies classroom. So in Edulastic, there are over 50 different technology enhanced items. This is really great and especially great for social studies because you can do so much more than just your traditional multiple choice questions in Edulastic. You can add passages, you can add multimedia, lots of really cool stuff that you can do within Edulastic. You can upload photos or maps using all of these different technology enhanced items. So here's a few examples of that. So like I said, lots of different technology enhanced items or questions in Edulastic. These range from multiple choice to multi-part. Multi-part are really great for social studies. You could have students start with a multiple choice question and then do something a little bit more advanced afterwards, maybe a little passage or a drawing response, something like that. Essays are, I know, very popular in social studies classes. Drag and drop, label an image, drawing response, fill in the blank, highlight, and more. Like I said, there's over 50 to choose from, and you either can author these from scratch or you can choose from our item bank. And I know that Greg and Jenny are going to touch on this more throughout the presentation. Here are a few examples of what some social studies questions can look like in Edulastic. This one's cool. You can add multiple different sources in, add a map, and then ask students to respond based on the information that you've given them here on the left side of their screen. And then this one here, we see a drag and drop question. So you can have students place the events in the timeline in chronological order. So I know that Greg has some cool examples to share on this, and I think Jenny has some cool stuff similar to this to share as well, but I just wanted to give a quick sneak preview. And then once you create your test and assign it to your students, one of the really great things in all different types of subjects in Edulastic is the instant data that it provides. So you give that test, and as your students are taking it, you're able to see how they're doing on each question, and then similarly how the entire class is doing. So right away in real time, I see question 2, for example, my students are really struggling. So as a teacher, I can maybe pause if this is a more formative assessment and ask students or review that concept with the students really quickly. So we'll have more on this live class board later. Alrighty, this is a really exciting piece of today's webinar. We are giving away a subscription to Edulastic Teacher Premium. Everybody who is here today is already automatically entered, so thanks for being here live. And we will be announcing the winner to this at the end. You might be asking, what is Edulastic Teacher Premium, especially for those of you who are brand new. Teacher Premium is our paid version of Edulastic. So in the free version, it's really robust. You can have unlimited classes, unlimited students, unlimited assessments, all of that great stuff. But in a Teacher Premium version, there's some more advanced features like in-depth data, anti-cheating features, some different collaboration tools, and a lot more. So we will be giving away this subscription to Teacher Premium at the end of this webinar. We'll be randomly selecting from everybody who is here live. Alrighty, and at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter. Greg Ebert is a teacher at Evergreen Valley High School in San Jose, California. He teaches US history and AP macroeconomics and AP government and politics. He's been using Edulastic for a few years, and he is going to talk about how he uses it with his students in a distance learning setting. So welcome, Greg. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, great. Thank you, Jan and Jenny and Ileana for having me here today. And thanks everyone for being here. Hopefully you can get something helpful out of this. Since I heard a lot of us are kind of brand new to Edulastic or haven't been using Edulastic a ton, I'll try to make sure I can give some of the basics and of kind of how I use Edulastic here. Can I take over screen sharing potentially?
Yeah, go for it. Let me stop sharing. Okay, you should be able to go for it.
I'll start in the slides, and then I am going to go in the app and kind of see. We'll see what it gets up. So give me a second. I'm sure everyone's used to this. All right, you should hopefully be seeing my screen right about now. I teach over at Evergreen Valley High School here in San Jose, and we have been doing distance learning for quite a while now, and that's really what kind of sparked my interest in Edulastic. But now I'm actually excited and can think of a lot of cases outside of distance learning where there might be a really strong use for Edulastic. So I know kind of at the start of distance learning, a lot of people were trying to use Google Forms, and in class, of course, in-person tests are great, but I always felt like there's a lot to be desired when it came to the data department. I always felt like there's a lot of work that I would have to do to gather really great insights from my students' tests, my students' quizzes, my students' assessments. I'd have to do a lot of work, a lot of kind of guesswork as well. Sometimes it felt like I didn't have the best data, particularly when it came to writing assignments and things like that. So I really find myself and have found myself in my career sometimes struggling to kind of make the most of the assessments that I have and use those to drive instruction. And Edulastic does make it pretty easy to monitor student progress and to figure out where students might need extra support, whether that's a particular standard, a particular skill, or just a particular question type that students are struggling with. So Edulastic has really been a lifesaver during remote learning, as it's allowed me to continue to have quizzes and to kind of get a sense of where my students are. So I'm going to try to walk you folks through the way I use Edulastic and some of the cool features that allows Edulastic to help my students and to help make my life a lot easier as well. I know that often as teachers, it feels like we're barely staying afloat, or at least I feel that way. Hopefully I'm not alone there. And Edulastic is just a little tool that can sometimes make things just a little bit easier. So what's cool for those of you who haven't used Edulastic before is it's really, really pretty easy to use. It's easy to get started on Edulastic. It's not hard to do. And then once you're on, you just kind of start learning and learning and learning. I'm still learning some of the features of Edulastic, some of the ways in which to use it. So don't worry if at first you're like, I'm just going to stick with some simple multiple choice questions. That's totally fine. And it does link up with Google Classroom. That's how I use it. I'm using Google Classroom for assignments and this and that. And Edulastic links directly to Google Classroom. You can create any kind of assessment that you want. I've primarily been using it for more summative and formal assessments, but you can totally use Edulastic for a quick exit ticket. You can use it for a homework assignment. You can use it for lots of different things. It's really up to you. You could use it for informal quizzes. You could use it for just, progress checks here and there. It doesn't have to just be, here's your test or here's your quiz. And then ideally you get some great data and you can use that to drive your future instruction. That's kind of why I use Edulastic, why it's worked for me so far. So let's get into it a little bit. Here's why I use it. I guess I've kind of covered this. I like that I can make a ton of different questions. We'll go through those question types in just a second. I like that I can have multi-part questions. I can kind of do whatever I want. You also can just use it as a platform to have long essay questions, short answer questions. There's just a lot there that you can use. So it's really adaptable to whatever your needs are for an individual quiz, test, assignment. You can kind of make Edulastic work for just about anything. Okay, so today in the app, here's what I'm going to try to show you folks, and try to go through all the different ways I use Edulastic. So we'll start by just kind of giving a quick overview of what we see on this Edulastic screen. Once we get on there, look at the class, look at making your own quiz. I've got a bunch of different questions I want to show you, some cool ones, some simple ones, and then how you can make the tests work in all sorts of different test settings. Finally, we'll finish up by looking at that live class board that Ileana and Jan were mentioning, which is really great right now in distance learning for me, but also really great in general. You can see how students are doing in real time. You can figure out, oh, students are really struggling with this one question. I should keep that in mind. And then you can, at the end, use that live class board to see how students did overall. So hopefully I can be of use today. Hopefully you'll leave here knowing a little bit more about the app and more about how you can use it. And if you already are a user, figure out some maybe new question types or new ways to use Edulastic. I'm still learning. There's still more to learn. There's always more to learn, which is cool. And there's always more ways to kind of use Edulastic, which is great. I still feel like I'm scratching the surface, and there's even more for me to do with the data, more for me to do with the questions. All right, so let me head over to my app. I've got a couple screens that I can share with you. All right, so big thing, I know we have a lot of folks who are new to Edulastic, who haven't used it before. So when I first got on Edulastic, first thing that I did is I created my classes, which is really easy to do. Here is just a fake class that I've created. What's great is super easy to sync with Google Classroom. You literally just put this in, you put your code in, and it does the work for you. Was how I've done it. So I've never actually added students manually. I know it is doable to do that, but entering it via Google Classroom for me and my school and our LMS, that was just the easiest thing. And then all my students populate right in. You also, when you make your tests, when you make your quizzes, when you make your assignments, whatever you're doing, there's a button where you can just sync it with Google Classroom. What's really nice about that is once I sync my assignment with Google Classroom, then it'll show up on the Google Classroom stream, and students will see it as an assignment. They'll be able to click in. So students won't have to go to like a separate app and log in via Edulastic. You pretty much can automatically get there right through Google Classroom. So I was actually really surprised when I first tried using Edulastic. I had zero technical hiccups with students. Every student got in very, very easily. Every student was able to get in and get started on a quiz like that. So I was impressed. I know we've all had trouble with technology before, and I was impressed with how little trouble I had getting all of my students on board and into the assignments, into the quizzes, into all of that. So I'll show you how you sync that in a little bit. Let's go into a test right now. So this is one I've just made. I've combined a few tests that I've made to kind of show you a bunch of different question types. So we open up this sidebar, that dashboard's where I start, has all your classes. So that's kind of the first thing you'd want to maybe do is figure out which classes you're going to use on Edulastic, how you're going to make that work. And then for making a test, now you can go through and make individual items in this item bank. I don't know what I didn't save, probably nothing important. So you can go through and make individual items, which are just quiz questions or documents or whatever, or you can make a test, which combines a bunch. No matter what you do when you're in your test, trying to make a test or trying to make an assignment, whatever you do, it will save and be saved forever. So you can pull it up in a different quiz. You can add it to a different quiz, different test, anything like that. So here's my quiz, Edulastic for social science. I combined some different stuff from US history and from AP macroeconomics, just to show you a couple of the different ways that Edulastic can kind of work for different question types. So there's really a lot here that we can go through. I know this looks kind of like there's a lot going on. It's pretty simple. I just went through and added items, made this happen. I just created items. I'll walk you through that in a little bit. Let's look at the questions. I think that's a good place to go. So I'm going to press view as a student so I can see what it looks like, what it will look like for students, because this is not what it will look like for students. For students, it's really simple. It looks just like this. So this is just like a really simple kind of question that you can do with Edulastic that's really nice, is you can just copy and paste in as much text as you want as a question. You can text in image or paste in images, tables, whatever you want. This is an excerpt from really, really great book, History of Standard Oil Company. Thankfully, I don't make the students read the whole thing, but a little excerpt here that they can kind of use. So this is just a really simple multiple choice question, and those are probably the easiest ones to make. But that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg. So you can do whatever you want with multiple choice, but you can go a lot deeper than just multiple choice questions. This is just another simple multiple choice question. But then I went in and made it kind of multiple parts. So here, this is for AP macroeconomics. So if you haven't seen this graph before, count yourself lucky, I guess. So this is a multi-part question, which are really easy to make. So you can make questions that have multiple parts to them, and they can have multiple different types of questions. So for this question, I start out with a graph and a multiple choice question interpreting that graph. And then students can go in, and this next question is a short answer. And this is a really short answer. I'm just looking for a word or two here. And students are able to answer this short answer. You can set this up, and actually can show you this in a second. You can set this up. You can set up a rubric to auto grade students' responses. So if I'm looking for like one word, say I'm looking for the word, I think I was looking for the word inflation. If they put inflation, there's a pretty good chance it was going to be right. I could set up the grading to give credit to everyone who puts inflation. And then if I think maybe that's not enough and I want to double check, I can go through individually and check that their answers are actually correct and that they are understanding the concept, understanding what I'm looking for. So you can set yourself up. You can set it up to match case. You can make them be required to keep uppercase. You can make it so it just needs to contain it. You can make it have to match directly what you want it to do. You can put alternative answers too. So if I thought, they could say inflation, or they could say in a expansionary gap here, that would be another answer. I think that works. I could put those as an alternative answer, and I'm not sure the limit. I've never run into it. I've always been able to put multiple answers, and then just another multiple choice question here. So let's continue on though. These are still into the really simple kinds of questions. So far, another really simple one, you can paste in your maps for geography type questions, or images if you want them to label things. You can paste in different images of historical figures if you want students to be able to identify that was something that you thought would be useful. There's really just a lot that you can do in a lot of different ways. So this is one way we could have a map question. You could also go through and make a map question that looks more like this, where students are going to go through and label based on where this little drag and drop tool is. Now I could also have made this question, instead of this drag and drop tool, I could have made this question be a fill in the blank. So instead of giving them these options, I could have just said, what states are these? And they could have had to type in, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, all of that. So I think that's a really cool way to make maps work, or make, I guess mostly maps. I'm trying to think of another case where I'd want to use this particular like labeling. But maps, something that I think our students really like is being able to kind of use this drag and drop or the fill in the blank here. So let's look at some more questions. These are just a few of the types. There's a lot more that you can see. So next here, obviously there's all kinds of multiple choice questions. So you don't have to just pick A, B, C, D, E. You can have questions where it gives you, there's multiple right answers. It's the kind of thing you'd expect, right? You can have a multiple check boxes, all sorts of different things. And these are just multiple choice stuff. You can paste in all sorts of things. These are all pretty simple. You can also really create big, long questions with lots of writing. You could have students write essays, short essays on Edulastic. Or you can, if they're worried about it, you can have them paste it in, whatever works. I actually did this question in 2 different ways. This is one way. And that's another thing that's really great about Edulastic is there's a lot of ways to make the same kind of question. So this is one way. I have a big task that they're doing, comparing 2 different documents from the Gilded Age. So they're comparing 2 different documents and they're having to write based on just the knowledge they have of these 2 documents and what they've learned in the class, which is cool. So they'd write it all down here, which is great. They can bookmark stuff and always come back to it later. It's one thing. This is what it looks like for students, but for students, they always can go back and it will save whatever they've written thus far, save whatever they've done so far. I've never had a student have a problem where they say, it didn't save my answer, or say, never had a student who says that it didn't work or that they lost their answer. It always seems to do a pretty good job of auto saving, which is really important, I know. That's one way I could do it, just like this, just copy and paste my documents in. There's also more robust features where you can go through and create like a source set. So this is the same question, but just done it a little bit of a different way. I've done a side-by-side passage view, which is really cool. And I could have more than just 2 passages. For this one, I've just got these two tabs that I can scroll through and have the student kind of work and be scrolling back and forth. They can also make it full screen, so they're just writing, or full screen, so they're just reading. There's just a lot there. Both, I think, are totally great ways to make the same question. Just depends on your students, what you think is going to be most helpful for them and what works for you as well. Maybe you start out with the simpler question back here, and as you get used to Edulastic, you can really build on the skills that you have and make questions that have a little bit more going on to them, which is really cool. I think I have a few other question types. Here's a very cool question. This one is maybe the kind of thing I would give for a homework assignment. I could just give this one question, not one question, this one source set, this one set of passages. It's got 5 sources. We got all sorts of stuff about the Cold War here, which is really cool. We got timeline, images, we got political cartoons, and there's multiple questions for the students to answer just about this particular set of sources. So that might be a great thing for you to do. And you can put your homework assignments onto Edulastic, and then you can get that data really well, really quickly, really easily when students actually go through a source set like this. I know that in my classroom, really like to give students primary sources, secondary sources, and having a spot like this where I can, give them these 5 things and let them work on it is great. You could do this for a quiz, you could do this for homework, you could do this for an exit ticket. It's kind of up to you on what you think is works for your students. So let's see. Yeah, I got a bunch of other kind of questions that came along with this. Drag and drop answer, cause and effect stuff. This might be really great for some of you teachers who really like, or your students really like to kind of order and sequence things. So they can have them think, what are 2 causes? What are 2 effects? It's something really important in social sciences, thinking about cause, thinking about effect. And that's something that you can totally do here on Edulastic, which is great. And when you make your tests or your quizzes, your questions, they're saved. You can share them with your colleagues who are using Edulastic. There are a lot of questions that have already been made, and there's only going to be more questions that are going to be made moving forward. So, once you make this question, right, you can use it again and again and again. Maybe not for a test if you're worried about, worried about students seeing it. But if you're doing it for assignments, you can always make that a repeat assignment. And then, yeah, longer question here. So this is like a really kind of a full assignment in one big source book, full assignment right here. I think I have a couple other questions, classic little sequencing that you can do, which is great. Maybe you like to have students kind of order things chronologically. You can order things by, I guess, any other way you think is useful. These kind of questions are sometimes good. And what's great is for students, right? This is really simple. This is really easy to look at. Just another classic kind of question. You can put two sources on one page instead. So there's all these different ways to do the same stuff, which I think is really nice, and it makes it more approachable. It makes it easier for me, makes it easier for students as well to use. Just a nice political cartoon. Let's see, did I have any other question types that I want to go through? I think those were most of the kind of question types that I wanted to show you folks. As far as that auto grading goes, let's take a look at how I auto graded one of these, or how I can auto grade. So, oops. So right here, for one of these sources, I'm asking students what the theory is, and I can set it up to auto grade, so I don't have to actually go through and look at the correct answer. I'm looking for domino, and I can set that up where it can be case sensitive, or set that up where if they say anything like domino or any text containing domino, I can get it so it gets them the point and saves me time, so I don't have to actually look through. Or if I do, I can go a lot quicker. So that's something that saves me a lot of time when I have short answer questions. If there's like a keyword I'm looking for, it can save me some time when I'm actually going through and grading some of these things. All right. So there's lots of question types. I'll show you how I can actually link standards to these, which is really great too. If you're really trying to make sure you're covering standards, that also will really help you out when you get your data from Edulastic. So I think I'm just going to quickly try to make a question right now, maybe just a really quick one, just a really quick item. So let's go with multi-part. Multi-part is cool because you can add all sorts of different kinds of questions in one. So those are some of the ones where you saw me have, an image with a multiple choice, and then one where it had, a short answer afterwards. There's lots of different stuff. So cruise through, make a first part. Maybe my first part is, what is, I'm gonna blank on question. What is the weather like? It's not going to be a social science one. Going to be like, this is just a multiple choice question. I could create my answers. I don't know why I would do this kind of question. It's going to be good or it's going to be not good. That's my two choices, right? So once I've started making my question, I can go into this metadata, and there's a lot here, and it can look like there's a lot going on. So I'm in grade 11. I can find my standard set. I'm doing social science. I'm here in California, so I want to use my California ones. There's lots, though. I know someone in the Q&A had a question about New York. I quickly zoomed through and I found the New York one not too hard to find, somewhere around here. Yeah, here's New York learning standards in the framework. So I'll just pull up the framework and see what kind of stuff they've got. Oh, they don't have anything. Oh, they do. Cool. Textual evidence. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I plug in my standard. Oop, I accidentally got rid of it. I plug in, this is what I want them to do. Primary sources, apparently. That's what maybe this is about. I can also do DOK. I can also just select the difficulty level. That's always fun for me. I always like to kind of do it to see what I think and then see what ends up happening. Can be useful, a little piece of data, and useful for you as well to see, are students struggling with easy questions? If so, is it the question, the way your question is being worded? What's going on? Why is there that disconnect? So you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to put standards. It's totally up to you. So sometimes when I'm making a quiz, it doesn't happen. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes you're trying to make something quicker and you don't have time to go through and tag everything. You can always go back later and tag your questions with standards when you do have time. So I've done this. I'm just going to say it's medium, and I've saved this. This is only one. Oop, I didn't make the answer choice. A is good. Oh, it doesn't like that I've given 3 choices. Didn't like that. I didn't give them a correct answer. All right, now it should save. Hopefully it saves. And then I could add another part. Maybe I add, just a writing part. So there's plain text, short text, and rich text. There's not a huge difference between these, but you could totally add a rich text one. How do you feel today? This one won't have the option to auto grade since it is going to be an essay. But if I wanted instead to do one that did, oops, I think, does plain text? No, plain text won't either. It just needs to be the short text one where I can set up an exact match. So I can set this up. This is like that one with containment and domino theory. I can set it up to be, I don't want an exact match. I want any text containing domino. And this will allow Edulastic to do it for me. I can come through and double check my work, right? Double check that it all works, but I've never had any problem. Sometimes you got to be careful to make sure it's any text and make sure you add all the alternative answers because sometimes students come up with stuff that's a little different. All right, so that's all the stuff as far as making your quiz, making your test goes. I'm going to go back to my tests really quick and just show you how I'd sync it with Google Classroom while we're here.
Yeah, and then Greg, just a quick time check.
Okay, perfect. I will just cruise over really quickly then to our live class board. Here's a live class board. Since I'm running out of time, it's too much to cover, it's like class time. So here's the best part of Edulastic is this live class board, because as soon as students start working on a quiz, you can see their progress in real time. You'll be able to see that the students are working on their quizzes, working on their assignments. If they're not logged in, it'll say not yet started. And you can get in touch with that student and figure out why, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's in distance learning, whether that's for homework. You can figure out, oh, this student didn't touch it. It'll also show this gray is a part that a student maybe didn't get to. You can see that. This class board will start to fill in as your quiz is going, and you'll see how students are doing. So for this quiz, this is from a macroeconomics quiz. I can see, oh, it looks like this question was maybe one of the tougher ones. Looks like this question was also pretty tough, and I can kind of use that to guide my future instruction. Use that data to say, oh, this question, I can click on it. This question 6 seems like it was a little tough. What about it was tough? I can look and see. It's also, I know I sometimes catch myself with questions that I didn't correctly create or that I created the wrong answer. So it's kind of tough for students. Good to know. You also can share this live class board with students. Up here normally it says present mode. That's why all these students have been anonymized into this. So you could, if you wanted, go through with your students and be like, here's what happened. And that's a really cool tool. You also can set up your quizzes, your assignments, your tests to redirect, which is basically just giving the quiz, the test back to students to try again. And that could be if you're having a quiz that you want students to really master, an assignment you want them to master. If they don't get 100%, you can set it up to automatically redirect or just to redirect right back at a particular student. Maybe I see Red Bike. I know Red Bike needs to do it a little bit better or wants to do a little bit better. I can redirect this back to Red Bike, to that particular student or to students who are absent or to a particular set of students. So the last thing that I'll show you really quick is just this standards-based performance, which is cool. So I only had 3 little standards that I linked to this, but I can see that looking at my performance, it looks like A and B students were doing pretty well on, C a little less so, but in general, kind of across the board, I can see, okay, these 3 standards that I was trying to hit, my students are mostly hitting. It's not like they're doing great in 2 and horrible in 1. They're mostly doing okay. And I can go through and see individually, it looks like, a couple students might need an intervention here. So I use this to figure out the things maybe that I'm missing, the things that I need to go back and cover in more details. So I think that's really all that I had for you. I know I kind of droned on a little bit. I'm sure as teachers, you understand the desire to do that. You can, with the test, do a lot to allow students to succeed, whether it's in distance learning, whether it's at home. So you can set it up for students to open manually in class. You can have it be open for a week or something and have students do it on their own. You can have students get multiple tries. You can do a lot here in this test level settings to kind of make sure that it works for students. You can shuffle answer choice. If you do have teacher premium, you can do shuffling answer choice and shuffling and using the safe exam browser as well. So there's really a lot that you can do. You can make the tests work for you. They don't have to even be tests. So I think with that, I'll turn the mic over. Sorry for running a little bit over, Edulastic team. That's my bad there.
Thank you, Greg. That was awesome. Really appreciate it, and some really cool question types as well. Definitely love all the multimedia that you've embedded, and thanks for showing the short text, how you get it to auto grade for even things like a sentence. That's a cool feature. Jenny, welcome. Go ahead. Do you want to share your screen, Jenny?
I will, yes, please.
Okay.
Hi,
great.
everybody. Give me a second just to share.
Yeah, no worries.
Like many of you, I'm on the West Coast and I still have kids that are pulling all of my bandwidth at home. So I'm going to turn my video off so I can run this as smoothly as possible here. But hello, everybody. I work with the customer success team, and I have used to be a teacher that used Edulastic in the classroom, and I started to work with the team here at Edulastic, and now I teach other teachers from our customer success team and answer those support questions and all that good stuff. So I've had a lot of experience with looking for content in Edulastic and specifically looking for social studies content. So I'm going to start here by sharing some tips and tricks, and then I'll dive into the product and show you a little bit more of a in the weeds kind of look at it. So as all of you know, I'm sure anybody who's played around in our format or on any other kinds of resources for curriculum, you as social studies teachers know that the biggest challenge that we've come across is that the topics are taught at different times and different grades across different states. So if you can imagine what it's like for Edulastic when we try to get a groundswell of content that fits everybody's needs, it just doesn't happen. So we have come across a few tips that we like to share with teachers, and these tips actually work for any subject, but I find them to be pretty dead on for social studies too. So just as a high level overview, normally in most search engines that you work with, you know, it's the inclination is to narrow down your search with as many filters as possible. However, our filters tend to be so finicky, and with the nature of the social studies content, it's almost better to use the fewest filters you can use. So I recommend removing most search filters except for perhaps the social studies subject and the grade you're looking for. And even grade when it comes to social studies is not always a dead-on indicator because, for example, in one state, world history might be taught in 7th grade, and another state, pieces of it are taught in 5th grade. And so what a 7th grader or a 9th grader is learning in California might be a totally different spin on world history that a 5th grader's interested in or is taught in another state. So even when you're searching by grade level, it does tend to narrow down your searches. So what I like to do is keep it as broad as possible and then search on some keywords. So I'll show you both of those as a search term. Before I get too far away from here, the other 3 things that I want to share with you is I'll give you a few tricks for making quick questions if you don't have, if you're not finding the content that you want. And then some other quick good tips that we tell all of our users is when you're building questions or when you're using questions or even reusing somebody else's from our library and making it available for others, if you use the tag feature, it tends to help search. And so it might expand your search a little bit more. And also, we have recently re-released the ability to publish your private assessments in the public library for others to use. So more than any other subject that we have, this is especially important in social studies because tons of teachers, hundreds, thousands of teachers across the country have social studies questions in their private library. And by sharing that to the public library, you're increasing more of our collective questions and more of our resources across the country. So it's a real service if you are willing to do that, we love to see that and love to have that. So let me move away here from my slides. Oops, excuse me, I'm finishing the slide deck, I'm sorry. And I want to share my screen with my Edulastic. Hold on. Oh, did I'll have to tell you that I use Zoom literally every day, and I still have the occasional glitch. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see this, my teacher screen now. And from the dashboard, I'm going to take you down in here to the test library and the item bank. And this is where, when you're looking for content that exists, you can find it. So I'm going to start with the test library, and the first thing I'm going to do is clear all. So this is what I was referring to about very sensitive filters. And often if you're looking for something that you can't find, it's likely because the filter has stuck on something that you were searching previously. So by clearing all, by focusing just on the subject, and then up here, I like to type in a keyword. So I sort of set this up here for revolutionary. So I'm just using a keyword like revolutionary, which gives me a broad range of items here. If I were to type in US Revolutionary War, that doesn't always yield as many results. So single word that are broad keystrokes will give you a more populated return. So let's go, but let's take this a little bit further. I'm going to do the ones that were authored by me. I'm going to remove the revolutionary. And so these were all of the ones that I have authored. But again, going back to the entire library is where I can see ones that anybody from the country have populated, as well as Edulastic's team. We often write items and share that as well. So this is the segue that I want to take you into to see a couple of easy ways. If you're searching through this test library or the item bank and you're not finding content that you want to use or content that's quite applicable to you, you can make your own in some pretty simple ways. So what I like to do is I like to use multimedia or images to prompt like an essay prompt that I would be asking anyways on paper. So you can do it by creating a new test, and I'm going to give you an example here. So let's do Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. I have links to this in that presentation from earlier, and you can refer back to this later, or you can just search on this term here in the library. It's in the public library, and you can search on this, and you can actually change mine around and make it work for whatever you're using. But this one is Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. It's a quick check that includes a YouTube video. So if your students are allowed to, or your firewall allows students to access YouTube or another outside site, this is a really quick way of making some content. So let's go into the details so you can see what it looks like. So I've got two passages here, or two questions here. One is a question that I borrowed from the library, and this is made by an author called Elizabeth Kasner. And then I went ahead and created one on my own very quickly using the YouTube repository. So the way that this YouTube one looks is I have used the multimedia, as Greg showed earlier, to embed the code from YouTube. And then I've asked several questions here about this. So the students can watch this and then answer these comprehension questions. So these questions actually were part of the YouTube presentation. So I didn't have to think too hard about it. I just was able to pull it from the presentation and enter the answers. And I think this took just a few minutes to build. So that's one option, is to be able to include that multimedia. It looks like this for the student. View as a student, here we go. So this is the first question. This is two excerpts, and they can answer that first question. Again, I found that in the library. Next, here's the video clip. They'd watch that and then answer these questions. And it's kind of a nice way to, one, it saves you time as a teacher, but it also engages the students in a way that might be a nice layering effect to what your curriculum already has or what your textbook says, for example. So that's one example. Let me back up here real quick. And I'm going to show you another type of thing that you can do very quickly. I pulled, this is a Revolutionary War essay response. So this would have been something that I might have given as a paper essay, end of a unit type of essay, but I made it a passage-based question. And then I added an image that I downloaded from the National Museum of Art. And then I just said, using this famous painting, describe the events of the Revolutionary War before and after this turning point. So to think of that and to create that is, a very quick one-off way to engage the students, and you don't have to build a full set of questions or, repurpose all of your other questions from other formats into Edulastic. So that's another option. And then the other one I wanted to show you, it's the same concept, but I took a map and I just uploaded the map and asked them to respond in an essay prompt using the map as the impetus. So using the map as a prompt, describe the significance of the Silk Road, include dates, historical figures involved, and a minimum of 3 areas that were affected by its existence. So if I had a test that had, maybe it was a multiple choice type test and it had several questions about this, I could just build that into this and continue to add on, or I could just condense all of those for a quick hit and have them respond in an essay format. So those are just some quick ways that you can do that. Now, while you are building these questions, I'm going to go to this edit mode here. You have a place to enter tags, and the tags are a way to make this easily searchable. So I put world history, I put trade routes, I could put Marco Polo. You can put any tags that you think are relevant, and the tags will help you and other teachers find the topic. So when you're struggling to find something by the title of the assessment name, often these tags go a long way in helping you narrow down to what you're looking for. So I've just added those. I'm going to publish it. So now I've published it, and here's how you go to the public library. So right now, when you initially publish it, it goes just to your private library. Here, I'm making it available for everyone, and then I'll share it out, and now it goes into the public library. So those are just a few tricks that I recommend. Again, now if I were to clear all my filters and search on Marco Polo, let's see what comes up. Yeah, so that one immediately came up, and so did somebody else's about Marco Polo. So you have to dive in a little bit and see what each one of those consisted of. But this little tag, when I have 0 filters set up, by searching on a keyword, I'm still able to come across some good topics. That's the majority of what I wanted to share. I'm happy to answer any questions or review any of the topics that we talked about today.
Thank you, Jenny. That was super helpful. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Tags are just such a great addition. So I'm going to go ahead and take back over screen share, and then we can get into our official Q&A time. Alrighty, you should be able to see my screen. Jenny, can you confirm?
Yes, you can.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, here's Jenny's presentation. Okay, so our official Q&A time. If people have questions for either Greg or Jenny, please enter them into the Q&A bubble now. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you may be wondering about. So our first question, Jenny, maybe if you could touch on this. What about different LMSs like Schoology? Does Edulastic sync with that?
Edulastic does connect with several different LMSs. Those are done at a district level most often. Occasionally, it's done at a school level. So it only works when you have either your school has purchased or the district has purchased. We don't do a one-for-one sync like for a premium teacher or a single teacher.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Next question is from Jack, and Jenny, maybe if you could open up the Q&A bubble too. He says,
yep, I see it.
Awesome. Do you guys offer any assessment packages like multiple choice and free response questions aligned to AP curricula?
That is like the $1,000,000 question. We would love to get more AP curriculum. We do offer packages and bundles, but it's not directly aligned to AP topics. It just is that that is a narrow part of the teacher base that we have. So when we're trying to get as many, fulfill the needs for as many people as possible, we've started with other things. But it certainly is, I do content development for Edulastic, and it is on my list, I can promise you that. One of the best ways to do that is to share with your, share whatever you've created and search on AP Lit, for example, or search on AP topics. And I know we've got quite a bit of science, or a handful of really solid science questions that were built by AP teachers. And so that's where the public library really comes in handy.
Great, thank you, Jenny. And Jack, yeah, I see your response. Glad that was helpful. Our next question, I think, Greg, this is a great one for you to take, is from David. He says, how do you get the images? He teaches deaf students and they are very visual. So yeah, Greg, when you upload images into Edulastic, where do you find them?
You can find them. You can get your images from anywhere. You will want to download it on your computer. So any image you have, you can upload into Edulastic. I'm sure there's, maybe copyright issues potentially. I don't really think so for images you're just finding on the internet. We have pretty big license as teachers for using it for educational purposes. So I might just like Google, a blank map or image of Abraham Lincoln or anything, and just include that. And you can upload that as part of any question. You can make it the labeling. You can do really anything. So any image that you can find, I think it accepts pretty much most major file formats. I've never had a problem getting an image to upload.
Great, thanks, Greg. And Jenny, I'm actually wondering if you want to take back over screen sharing. We have two questions that I think you can help with. The first is if you could model creating a question with embedded multimedia. So if you could, create a question from scratch and add some multimedia.
Okay, so I'm going to go over here to the item bank. I'm going to select new item. And any one of these item types, you can upload images or multimedia. So I'll start with that. I see there was another question about labeling. We'll do that one separately. So let's just take a typical multiple choice. When you click into the text field, this comes up here, this menu. And here's where you can insert a video. So you can insert a link to a video. If you have the embed code, which often comes from like YouTube or others similar, or you can upload something that you've done on your own laptop. So a lot of teachers will record a small snippet, maybe a reading from their curriculum books or something that they want the students to read or have, and then upload it that way, or get it from other sources here. So let's just, let me go over to YouTube and grab something. Forgive me, my kids all search on my same account, so if something silly comes up, you as teachers will appreciate that. But I'll take just this first one, and you grab the share button. Oh, sorry about that. Let's grab this really quickly. Thank you. Okay, so I'm copying the link and I'm turning off YouTube, and I'm going to paste in that link. When I insert it, it automatically inserts the image or the screener or the video player. If I want to do an image, I'm going to grab this image button, and I can drag it from my computer or click here and find it in here. And let's do the Paul Revere one. You can see I recently made that. And so here's an image, and now you can drag it. And so I've loaded that into the text just like you would do a Microsoft Word or a Google Doc. And now you can give some instructions. So watch the video and answer the following question. So this is a typical multiple choice question, and then you'll just have the answers here. And then when the student in preview mode, this is what the student sees. So they'll play the video or look at the image and answer the question. So that's how you just upload. So it does, the most successful uploads come from your own computer. If you copy and paste, it will work for you the first time. But if others tend to, if you share it and others use it, or your students access it in some other scenario, sometimes and often will show up as a broken link. So the key is really to, you can copy and paste images or videos, but you need to upload your images. It's really the best way to do it. So let me just get out of this here. That's how you embed that. And that same process works for any question type you choose. The other question that we had about using the labeling. So that is on one of these other categories. It's fill in the blanks category. And here you can label the image. So you upload an image, and then here's their response boxes. So once you've uploaded the image down here, you're going to drag the response box to the appropriate spot. And depending on what you want them to do, if you want them to type in the words, you'll put what it should be here, or if it's a drop-down box, there's a lot of options here. So I would just recommend playing around. You'll also, when you access these, you'll see these little video tutorials that are about a minute or a minute and 30 seconds, and they walk you through the steps of how to add these. So that's sort of the high level. I see that there's some other questions coming through. So we can either email some more resources or tutorials, or maybe that's just enough to get you started and play around.
Definitely. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I was going to say we should move on to our Teacher Premium giveaway now. And if we did not answer your question today, please feel free to email us, or we can stick around after the presentation to answer it as well. We really want to make sure that you guys get all of the information that you are hoping to get out of today. For now, okay, it is time for our Teacher Premium giveaway. So again, we are really happy that everybody is here live. We definitely appreciate it. Our random Teacher Premium giveaway, Ileana randomly drew a name out of everybody who is here. And I want to say congratulations to Nadine Reed. So thank you for being here, Nadine, and thank you to everybody for being here. Nadine, I have your email from when you registered for today's training. So I will be emailing you either after the training or tomorrow to get you all set up with your Edulastic Teacher Premium account. So congratulations to Nadine. Alrighty, and then lastly, I wanted to say thank you everybody for joining us today. We know this is a really busy time of year, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day. We are really active on social media, and we're always sharing tips and tricks and other Edulastic strategies and webinars. So give us a follow on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Ileana can share the links to those in the chat. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.